North Korea and Russia, two nations which certainly have a common Western adversary. And now there's news of closer military ties brewing between the two nations, something Russia has neither accepted nor denied.
Absolutely. We're talking about the expected meet between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un sometime this month. That's what the reports are saying especially. Kim Jong-un's rare foreign trip to Russia, it will likely take place later this month. As per the United States, Kim Jong-un, he will discuss providing arms to Moscow for its war in Ukraine. Now, the question is, what sort of an impact will this have on the war?
Exactly. Now, that is definitely something that needs to be pondered upon. Now, as per New York Times, Kim Jong-un is likely to head by armored train to Vladivostok on Russia's Pacific coast, not far from North Korea, to meet with Vladimir Putin. The two leaders would discuss sending Russia artillery shells and anti-tank missiles in exchange for Moscow's advanced technology for satellites and nuclear-powered submarines. Now, the news of Kim's planned visit came after Russia said it was discussing holding joint military exercises with North Korea.
Now, news agency Yonhap earlier cited South Korea's intelligence agency as saying that Russian Defense Minister Shoigu, who visited Pyongyang in July, had proposed to Kim that their countries hold a naval exercise along with China. Last week, US said that it was concerned that arms negotiations between Russia and North Korea were advancing actively and that Shoigu had tried during his visit to convince Pyongyang to sell artillery ammunition to Russia. Russia and North Korea, they've recently called for closer military ties, but Pyongyang, it's denied having any arms deals with Moscow.
The United States recently imposed sanctions on three entities it accused of being tied to arms deals between North Korea and Russia. Pyongyang is one of Moscow's close Cold War allies and also one of a small handful of countries to back Russia's annexation of parts of Ukraine in 2022. Now, Kim Jong-un's father, the reclusive Kim Jong-il, who famously shunned planes and traveled by armored train only, last visited Russia just months before his death in 2011.
Уверен, что и ваш визит сегодня в России.
Now, to discuss this further, we have with us Dr. Robert Edwin Kelly. He is an American political analyst on inter-Korean affairs and a professor at the Department of Political Science at the Busan National University. Busan, thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Now, sir, my first question to you. North Korea is expected to supply Russia with anti-tank missiles, and Moscow is reportedly going to provide North Korea with advanced technology for nuclear-powered submarines. How do you see this impacting the volatile Korean Peninsula region and also, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war?
Yeah, so I think the big upside for the Russians, of course, is the ability to generate more anti-tank weapons to use against all the NATO gifts to the Ukrainians in the last year or so, right? I think that we're all sort of aware that NATO has been providing an increasing number of armored vehicles, infantry fighting vehicles, tanks, and so on. And the Russians need to be able to knock that stuff out, right? We know that Russia's had its own problems developing or producing what it needs from its defense industrial base, and so it's looking to import that. The only thing I would point out here, right, is that North Korean equipment is sort of fairly outdated. A lot of it is sort of designed on old Soviet designs from the Cold War, so it's not exactly clear to me that North Korean anti-tank weapons are going to solve this problem. On the North Korean side, though, I think the upside is very clear, which is that North Korea wants to secure its nuclear weapons from an American airstrike, right? And North Korea's nuclear missiles would be much safer if they were put on submarines than if they were on launchers or silos on land, right? And so to the extent that the Russians can help the North Koreans build better submarines, that's a big step up for the North Koreans.
Dr. Kelly, now there are reports which indicate a trilateral military exercise between China, Russia and North Korea. There are also brewing military ties between Iran and Russia, which have been brewing since a while. It's become more formal now. Are we seeing the formal emergence of an anti-US force of nations which is coming out in the open?
We're getting there. That's actually a really good question, right? I think we're stumbling in that direction. It's increasingly clear that the United States and China are falling into a Cold War, right? Strategic competition, great power competition is the term the Biden administration uses. But as the United States and China sort of face off against one another, what you're going to see, and I think what we're seeing, is sort of countries around the world feeling compelled to sort of choose one side or the other, and we know that Russia and Iran and North Korea have sort of their own problems with the United States going back. And so it seems to make sense that they all kind of work together. We saw this sorts of behavior during the Cold War, and certainly the Americans have done that too. In Asia, the Americans are trying to pull South Korea and Japan more closely, right? The United States has been talking to your country, India, for a while, trying to sort of get India to be a little tougher on China. I mean, that's where we're going. We're kind of sliding into this direction of a second Cold War.
All right. Well, Dr. Robert Edwin Kelly, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA with your insights on this.
Thank you for having me.